Welcome to Rare Coins Mysteries.
The government has been hiding something from you. Right now, 3 specific quarters are being quietly pulled from circulation across the United States. Not because they are worn out, not because they are old, because they contain a secret worth thousands of dollars, and most Americans are spending them every single day without knowing. I'm going to show you exactly which quarters to look for, starting with number 10 and ending with a coin that has sold at auction for over $47,000. Do not skip ahead. Do not close this video because the coin sitting in your change jar right now could change your life. The U.S. Mint is counting on your ignorance. Starting today, that ends. Here are 10 quarters the government does not want you to find. Number 3. Before I show you this coin, I need you to understand something. This is not just another coin story. This is something far more unsettling because right now, millions of people across the United States are unknowingly spending a quarter that could be worth far more than 25 cents. And unlike the usual coin collecting advice, this one centers around a specific coin that most people completely ignore. The 1999 Connecticut State Quarter A coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but hides details, variations, and rare errors that have shocked collectors and quietly sold for surprising amounts, while the average person drops them into vending machines or leaves them in jars at home. Before we go deeper, you need to understand the timing, because 1999 marked the beginning of the 50-state quarters program, one of the most ambitious coin releases in American history. And the Connecticut quarter was one of the first coins released in that series, which means it was produced in massive numbers across multiple mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And whenever you have that level of production, something unusual happens. Small mistakes slip through unnoticed, and those mistakes are exactly what turn an ordinary coin into something rare and valuable. Now picture this. You are holding a 1999 Connecticut quarter. You flip it over and you see the famous charter oak tree, a symbol of independence and history. But what if that tree is not exactly as it should be? What if the details are slightly off? What if there is a doubling in the leaves or a distortion in the lettering? These are not just imperfections. These are what collectors call mint errors. And in the world of coin collecting, mint errors can mean everything. One of the most talked about versions of this coin is the double die variety. This happens when the design is stamped onto the coin more than once at slightly different angles, creating a shadow-like effect on the text or image. If you look closely at the words or the branches of the tree, and you notice a doubling effect, you might be holding something far more valuable than face value. And the shocking part is many of these coins went into circulation before anyone noticed. Another version that has gained attention is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, resulting in part of the design being cut off while the rest appears shifted. These coins look obviously flawed, but that flaw is exactly what makes them desirable to collectors. And depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, the value can increase significantly. But it does not stop there, because there are also coins with die cracks where lines appear across the surface of the coin due to stress on the minting equipment. These cracks can create unique patterns, and in some cases they resemble lightning bolts running through the design, and collectors actively search for these because no two are exactly the same. Then there is the issue of condition, because even a common coin can become valuable if it is in near-perfect condition. Coins that have never been circulated and still retain their original shine are graded on a scale, and those that achieve the highest grades can sell for much higher prices than expected. So, if you have a 1999 Connecticut quarter, that looks unusually clean with sharp details and no signs of wear, it might be worth taking a closer look. What makes this even more interesting is how these coins continue to circulate today. They are not locked away in museums or private collections. Many of them are still out there mixed in with everyday change, which means the opportunity to find one has not disappeared. It is still possible right now to check your pockets, your wallet, or that jar of coins sitting at home and discover something unexpected. There have been reports from collectors who found rare variations in the most ordinary situations. Someone sorting through laundry coins, someone receiving change at a grocery store, someone opening an old piggy bank, and inside, among dozens of regular coins, there it was a slightly different Connecticut quarter that turned out to be worth far more than expected. The psychology behind this is fascinating because most people never look closely at their coins. They see them as interchangeable objects with fixed value, but collectors see something entirely different. They see patterns, anomalies, and potential. And that difference in perception is what creates opportunity. And then there is the question that always comes up. Why would something like this go unnoticed for so long? The answer is simple scale. When billions of coins are produced, it becomes nearly impossible to catch every variation. And once those coins enter circulation, they blend in with everything else. Only those who know what to look for can separate the rare from the ordinary. Some versions of the 1999 Connecticut quarter have been listed and sold online for prices that surprise people, not because they are common, but because the right combination of rarity, condition, and error creates demand. And when collectors compete for a specific coin, the price can climb quickly. But it is important to stay grounded because not every Connecticut quarter is valuable. In fact, most of them are still worth exactly 25 cents. The key is knowing what to look for and being patient enough to examine the details carefully. This is not about instant wealth, it is about awareness and attention. So here is what you should do next. Take a few minutes and gather any quarters you have. Look specifically for the 1999 Connecticut design, examine the surface. Under good lighting, check for doubling in the text or tree. Look for misalignment or unusual markings. Pay attention to the edges and the overall condition. If something looks different, set it aside and research further, or have it evaluated. The idea that something valuable could be hiding in plain sight is what makes this so compelling, because it challenges the assumption that everyday objects are always ordinary. Sometimes they are not. Sometimes they carry stories of mistakes, timing, and rarity that transform them into something much more interesting. This is where the story takes a darker and more surprising turn, because by the time you reach the 2001 Kentucky State Quarter, you are no longer just looking at an ordinary coin. You are looking at a piece of history that millions of people have handled without ever realizing that some versions of it carry unusual details, rare errors, and hidden value that collectors have been quietly chasing for years. The 2001 Kentucky Quarter was part of the same ambitious state quarters program that reshaped modern coin collecting in America, and it features one of the most recognizable images in the series, the stately home of Abraham Lincoln known as Federal Hill, along with a thoroughbred horse standing in the foreground, a design meant to capture the spirit of the state. But within that design lies a world of subtle differences and overlooked variations that most people never noticed. What makes this coin so intriguing is not just its appearance, but the conditions under which it was produced. Because like many coins from that era, it was struck in enormous quantities at multiple mint locations. And whenever production reaches that scale, the chances of anomalies increase dramatically. Small shifts in alignment pressure or die condition can create coins that look almost identical at a glance, but reveal something entirely different when examined closely. One of the most talked about discoveries involving the 2001 Kentucky quarter is the presence of doubling in certain areas of the design. This can appear in the lettering in the outline of the horse, or even in the details of the building itself. And while it may be difficult to spot without magnification, it is exactly the kind of feature that collectors look for because it indicates a variation that was not intended in the original design. Imagine looking at the words on the coin and noticing that the letters seem to have a faint shadow as if they were stamped twice. That is not just a visual quirk. It is a clue that the coin may have been struck using a double die. And coins like that can stand out in a collection, especially when they are confirmed and preserved in good condition. Then there are the off-center strikes, which are among the most visually striking errors you can find on any coin, including the Kentucky, begin to wear down or fracture under pressure, creating raised lines or blobs on the surface of the coin. Sometimes these marks cut across important parts of the design, altering the appearance of the horse or the building in subtle but noticeable ways. And because each crack develops differently, every affected coin becomes unique. And then there is something even more subtle, something that requires patience and attention to detail. Small differences between coins minted in Philadelphia and those minted in Denver. These differences can include slight variations in strike quality, texture, and detail, and while they may seem minor, they can influence how collectors evaluate a coin, especially when combined with other factors like condition and rarity. Condition plays a critical role in determining value, and this is where many potential treasures are overlooked, because a coin that has been in circulation for years will show signs of wear, scratches, dullness, and fading details. But if you happen to come across a 2001 Kentucky quarter that looks unusually sharp with crisp lines and a bright surface, it could be worth much more than its face value, particularly if it also exhibits one of the rare features already mentioned. There is also the world of proof coins, which were specially made for collectors using polished dies and planchets. These coins often have a mirror-like finish and sharper details than regular circulation coins, and while most proof coins are carefully preserved in sets, some have found their way into circulation over time, creating the possibility that an unsuspecting person might encounter one without realizing its significance. What makes all of this even more fascinating is how these coins continue to move through everyday transactions. They are passed from hand to hand, used in vending machines, dropped into tip jars, and stored in drawers across the country. And within that constant movement lies the possibility that a rare variation could appear anywhere at any time, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. There have been stories shared among collectors about unexpected finds, someone sorting through loose change late at night, someone rolling coins for a bank deposit, someone casually inspecting a handful of quarters and noticing something slightly different about one of them. That moment of curiosity, that decision to look closer, can be the difference between overlooking a rare coin and discovering something truly interesting. But there is an important truth that needs to be understood. Because while these stories can be exciting, not every 2001 Kentucky quarter is valuable. In fact, the vast majority comes from specific conditions, specific errors, and specific levels of preservation, and without those factors, the coin remains part of the ordinary flow of currency. So the real takeaway is not that there is hidden treasure everywhere, but that knowledge changes perception once you understand what to look for. You begin to see details that others miss. You become more attentive, more curious, and more aware of the small differences that can transform an everyday object into something worth investigating. Now the story moves forward again, And this is where things become even more unexpected, because by the time you reach the 2014 Everglades quarter, you are no longer dealing with older coins that people assume might be rare. You are looking at something modern, something recent, something that people still see every single day. And that is exactly what makes it so easy to overlook. The 2014 Everglades Quarter was released as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, and it features a striking design of a great white heron standing in the wetlands, a scene tied to the vast ecosystem of Everglades National Park, a place known for its unique wildlife and natural beauty. But beneath that calm and natural imagery, there are details and variations that have quietly captured the attention of collectors who know exactly what they are searching for. What makes this coin particularly fascinating is the fact that it is still relatively new, which means many people assume it cannot possibly be valuable. Yet that assumption is exactly why certain versions of this coin continue to slip through unnoticed, because when something feels common, people stop paying attention to it. But here is where things begin to shift, because during the production of these quarters, billions were struck across different mint facilities. And just like with earlier coins, the sheer volume created opportunities for subtle mistakes and unusual characteristics to appear. These are not dramatic flaws that jump out immediately. They are often small, almost invisible details that require patience and careful observation. One of the most talked about features among collectors involves die chips and die breaks that appear on the surface of the coin. Sometimes these show up as raised bumps or irregular shapes near the heron or within the water design, and while they might look like minor imperfections, they can actually represent a specific stage in the life of a minting die, making each affected coin part of a limited group. Then there are coins that display slight doubling in the inscriptions or design elements. This doubling can be extremely faint, requiring magnification to see clearly, but once identified, it becomes a key indicator that the coin may belong to a recognized variety. And those varieties are what collectors actively search for because they add uniqueness to a collection. Another detail that has drawn attention is the quality of the strike, because not all coins are struck with the same level of sharpness. Some appear soft with blurred details, while others show exceptionally crisp lines, especially in the feathers of the heron and the texture of the water. Coins with stronger strikes and cleaner surfaces are often more desirable, particularly if they have been preserved in excellent condition. And then there is the factor of mint marks, because coins produced in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco can each exhibit subtle differences in appearance, and finish-proof versions from San Francisco, in particular, can have a mirror-like background and frosted design, creating a dramatic contrast that stands out immediately. If one of these coins somehow enters circulation, it can easily be mistaken for a regular quarter by someone who is not paying close attention. What adds another layer of intrigue is how these coins continue to circulate freely. They are not rare in the traditional sense of being hard to find, but specific variations within them are far less common, and that creates a situation where valuable pieces can exist alongside ordinary ones without anyone noticing the difference. Imagine receiving change after a simple purchase, and among those coins is a 2014 Everglades quarter that looks just slightly different. Maybe the heron appears sharper. Maybe there is a small raised mark that should not be there. Maybe the surface has an unusual finish. In that moment, you are faced with a choice to ignore it or to take a closer look, and that choice is where discovery begins. Collectors often describe the excitement of finding a coin like this as a moment of everyday objects to recognizing them as pieces of a much larger story. Each variation, each error, each subtle difference represents a snapshot of the minting process, a moment where something did not go exactly as planned, and those moments are what create rarity. But just like with every coin discussed before, it is important to remain realistic, because the majority of 2014 Everglades quarters are still worth their face value. The presence of an error or an exceptional condition is what changes everything. Without those factors, the coin remains part of the normal flow of currency. So if you want to explore the possibility for yourself, start by examining any 2014 Everglades quarters you come across. Hold them under good lighting, tilt them slightly to catch reflections, and look closely at the details of the heron, the water, and the doubling or differences in texture. Compare multiple coins if you can, because sometimes the easiest way to spot something unique is to see how it differs from others. And as you continue this process, you may begin to notice something unexpected, not just about the coins, but about your own perspective. You start to pay more attention to small details. You become more curious, more observant, and more engaged with the objects that pass through your hands every day.